All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, 15 with Fallon. If this is the first time that you joined us, what we do here is we do quick 15-minute educational calls for real estate agents to allow you to keep learning without taking up a whole lot of your time. Not a huge time commitment. So today we'll have Danielle. She's working the chat. So if you have any questions that come up, please put it in the chat and we'll make sure we'll try to answer as many as we can. And if we can't get to it, then I'll get back with you personally to answer those questions. But today, what we're going to talk about is a few tips that you can do as a real estate agent to help your buyers or your clients walk through the mortgage process as easily as possible, from the search all the way to the closing. So there are many tips that we can give you on this, but I wanted to go over the main things that you can do to make the process easy. So the first tip is contracts. When you're writing up a contract for your buyers or your sellers, try to keep it as clean as possible. We all want to make sure that we're protecting our clients and we are being as descriptive as possible, but you want to stay away from anything that is unnecessary or may draw attention in a negative way that, underwriters may question or may even open up a can of worms. So just keep that in mind when you're writing up contracts. And then also, when you do put in a contract, make sure you're not adding any personal property. See, as lenders, what we do is we lend on the loan value, the property value. Personal property like lawnmowers and bedroom furniture and those things don't actually add value to the home. So typically when an underwriter sees it on the contract, they are going to go ahead and they're going to make you remove it from the contract. So just to avoid the back and forth, then just don't put it in there to begin with. You can handle that stuff outside of the property transaction. Okay. Now, also, when you do get a contract, I know this pretty much goes without saying, but just as a reminder, make sure you get that contract to us or to your lender as quickly as possible. I know a lot of people will hold on to it, make sure inspections go well, but we have work that we can start on and we can start submitting early on. So the sooner you get that documentation to us, the better. And then this one's an easy one, but make sure it's fully executed. It happens quite often where we'll get the the contract back from underwriting or processing, and it'll be missing an initial here or there, or maybe it's not checked as accepted. And this is an easy fix because all you have to do is just resend it to all parties to correct. But just to make you look as diligent as possible and that you're looking over your work, just do that extra double check. That way you're not going to have to send it back later. So that is tip number one. Tip number two, I want to discuss inspections, okay? So what we typically do as lenders, or what I do as a lender, is we try to avoid the buyer paying any additional fees or charges that are unnecessary. So it's very common practice for the appraisal to be ordered after the inspections are already completed, or that we know that we will be moving forward and there's nothing that was found in the inspections that would actually kill the deal. So with that being said, when you know that it is a go, let us know immediately. Now, if you anticipate that you're going to be getting a general inspector or a roof inspector or a structural engineer, all these different inspections, if you're planning on getting all that, just make sure that you work that time frame into your inspection period and then also into the closing date. Because again, we don't want to pull that trigger and then something go wrong with inspections and now your buyer has a $500-600 appraisal that they can't do anything with. So we're just trying to be smart about it, but we also need to stay on task. Now, if there are any repairs that come up in inspection, just make sure you're staying on top of that. Sometimes smaller repairs, they end up getting pushed to the last minute. And then at the last minute, it causes delays. Let's say parts can't come in, the electrician has no time to come out. It's little things like that that causes the chaos and the anxiety between parties. So just try to take care of those repairs as quickly and as early in the process as you possibly can. All right, now that is my inspection tip. Tip number 3 is insurance and gathering information. So right now, especially in Louisiana, the insurance situation is a little bit unique. We don't have all the carriers that we used to have. So we are looking at each property individually and getting insurance quotes ahead of time, because some of these quotes are coming back and it may actually throw the borrower's DTI out of whack, where they're no longer approvable, or some properties are just not insurable, or it's so astronomical that the buyer says, absolutely not, I'm not going any further with this property. So if you can help us with the listing agent, maybe communicating with them, getting us the roof age, getting us maybe the AC unit, if it's something that they've replaced recently, any renovations that the listing agent or the seller has done recently may help us with the premium. So the more information that you can gather on those things, the better. All right. And this also applies to flood. So if you know the house that your buyer is interested in is in a flood zone, just make sure you let us know about that, because what we're going to do is we are going to make sure that we factor in flood insurance. We're going to find that it's in a flood zone once we run the flood cert, but that's after we're under contract. And the last thing you want is a buyer to fall in love with a house and then realize that it is out of range for them after they pulled the trigger on a contract. That's news that I don't want to break. So just something to keep in mind. Now, if the property is in a flood zone, something that can be considered is you may be able, in some circumstances, the buyer can assume the seller's flood policy. So that may be something that you'd want to request ahead of time, just to see what their flood policy is and see if it is assumable, because many times it's a lot cheaper of a premium to assume than it is to start a brand new policy. And then also, by getting this information in advance, there have been times that insurance agents will say, is there a flood elevation cert on this property that you can give us? Sometimes the seller has one, many times they don't. Sometimes this flood elevation certificate can actually help with the premium. It can help lower the premium. But if there isn't one, that may be something that you'd want to work into the contract too. You may ask the seller to provide the elevation certificate, and that way you'll save your buyer some money, because they may not have to get it themselves. All right, now tip number 4 is listen to conversations that you're having with your buyers. So what this means is, when I was a real estate agent, I had a completely different relationship or completely different dynamic with buyers than I do as a lender. As a real estate agent, you're out and about with them. You're spending hours with them. You're face-to-face looking at houses, spending weekends with them. You start to, learn their questions, learn their concerns, and kind of know what's going on in their lives. It's a lot different from the phone conversations I have with them as a lender. So there's certain red flags that you should listen for. One of them, for instance, would be, oh yeah, my last day of work is on Friday. So they don't always tell us the full story. And many buyers, they believe that once they get through the pre-approval process, or even the first segment of underwriting, that they're good to go. But what they don't realize is verification of employment is checked right before closing. Credit is usually checked right before closing. So any of these decisions that they're making, we probably need a heads up. So listen for things like that. If your buyer pulls up in a brand new vehicle, that could be a red flag as well, because any major purchases can also knock the buyer out of approval. If you hear that they're going to go furniture shopping this weekend and we haven't closed on the house yet, you may just want to have that conversation with them, because, maxing out a credit card or putting a higher balance on a credit card could disrupt their approval, or even opening an additional line of credit can definitely disrupt the approval. And we definitely will end up running these credit checks beforehand, and we don't want to have any surprises, right? Then the 5th one is communication. And this goes without saying, just communicate as much as you can with all parties. That is, communicate with your lender, communicate with your title company, your inspectors, your repairmen. If you keep us all in in the know, then we can help assist you better. I know as a real estate agent, sometimes it feels like you're just herding cattle constantly, but it is so important. And we will also, as lenders, sometimes we will reach out to you and ask for your assistance. A lot of times, we're asking for documents that maybe we were not getting in a timely manner. Sometimes the real estate agent makes that phone call and boom, it's done. So as long as we're working together and going back and forth, I think that it makes the process so much simpler. And on top of that too, before you go under contract, you probably want to have this conversation with your lender on the specific house, because you don't want to miss working maybe closing costs into the deal if the buyer does need additional closing costs, maybe requested from the seller. There's little things like that that we can catch up front to make sure that you're not having to amend the contract later to make the deal work. And then lastly, this is more of a bonus tip, but I feel that it's very important, is have a buyer's consultation. This is going to set the expectations early on of exactly what the buyer should expect, what the buyer is expecting for you to know, and it avoids a lot of the problems that you may run into as an agent. And we're going to do an entire call on just simply the buyer's consult and what you can do, what information that you can provide them, because honestly, what it is an educational meeting that you have with them. They don't do this every day. You do. They don't do this every day. So it really is important to set those expectations, because they may believe this is how the process works, and it may be completely different than that. So very, very important. That is my bonus tip. But if there's anybody that has any questions that they may want to discuss, Danielle, did we have anything in the chat?
No, I don't think so. There was one just said that they were excited about the consultation.
Oh, awesome. Excellent. Well, good. Well, we'll make sure that we do that very, very soon. We'll put that together, because I think that would be a very good class to have. And what's happening these days is we're all just chasing leads. So you'll get a sign call, or you'll get, a cold call lead, and we're just immediately jumping and meeting them at the property, and we kind of end up in that just want to be able to get that extra buyer. We're missing out on that. I don't want to call it a formal meeting, but that sit down face to face, let's work together and see how this is going to pan out. Let me tell you what's going to happen next. We're missing out on that piece, and it's such an important piece. So what you said, Danielle?
Set expectations.
Set expectations. Absolutely. So, well, that is my 15 minutes today. Thank you all for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. And again, send in your topics. What do you want to learn? You can go to the 15 with Fallon website. Danielle will put it in the chat. That's spell out 15 with Fallon. And you can request trainings, you can request topics to cover, or just simply ask me any questions that you have, and I'll make sure to get back to you with answers. So I hope all of you have a fantastic rest of your week, and we'll see you on the next call. Bye-bye.